doing, Anthony Scaramucci?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking me. You and I have quite the relationship, right? You remember that inaugural week? You were giving me the high karate, and now look at
No,
us,
you
right?
were
We're
trying
like
to give me the high karate. I was getting ready to give you the high karate
you
after
you
the
you
show.
were getting ready to give me the high karate right into my Adam's apple. But look at you now, you and me. Donald Trump, ladies and gentlemen, is bringing us all together. He just happens to be bringing us together against him. That's the irony of the whole thing, but we'll
So
get
is it
there together.
because your enemy, our enemy, makes us like each
Well,
other?
yes, that's true, but I don't see it that way. I just see it as that we're fellow Americans. He is quite the anti-American, and we have to push very hard here over the next 50 days or 46 or 7 days to get him out of there, and we will.
So at the end of the day, and I want to say this, everyone, I want you to go run tell that Anthony Scaramucci is here. We're going to be dropping some nuggets. We got a lot to talk about. I know he was drinking the Kool-Aid for a bit. You know what drinking the Kool-Aid means, right?
You're talking about like Jonestown Kool-Aid, right?
Yes,
I almost got knocked out by the cult, right? Is that what you're saying?
Woo! You 10 days. What is it, 11 days, 10 days? And I refuse to go see you.
Well, make it worse for me, April. I worked for him for 9 months during the campaign. After Jeb Bush came out, I worked for him for 9 months. I then raised money with Governor Chris Christie for his transition. I was one of the executive committee people for his transition. And then, yes, you're right. For 11 short days, I was the White House communications director. And then I got fired unceremoniously. But, here's the thing. I made a mistake. I tell all the young people that when you make a mistake like I did, you're accountable for it.
What was your mistake? You upstaged the president. That was your mistake.
Well, now you sound like some of the guys on staff. I guess my mistake in my mind is I said something off color.
You are a big personality. And you were going out there, you were over top of the press office. You went in there telling Ryan's Priebus, you were knocking everybody down, and people were like,
well, I got hired to fire. I got hired to push Reince Priebus out. If you remember, the president had me reporting directly to him. Reince was, look, he's a terrible guy. I'm not a Washingtonian, so I'm not one of these people that says nice things to people's faces and then stab them in the back. I'd rather tell you exactly how I feel about people.
So
but him and Steve Bannon,
you weren't emboldened with that spine because it was coming straight from the Oval Office, the president himself.
Yeah, but I believed that, though. I thought those two guys were nefarious people. They were quintessential Washington cucks. And, I think my singular contribution to the American society thus far, other than the businesses that I built, is getting Steve Bannon out of the White House when I did. Just imagine him and President Trump together right now with all that nonsense that they believe in their shared worldview.
Before we even go there, because I want to introduce you. All right, guys, I'm introducing to some, but most of you know this is Anthony Scaramucci, the Mooch. He's rich, an American financier, entrepreneur, political consultant, who served in the White House as communications director for President Donald John Trump for 11 days. But I like him. We like each other now. We almost came.
I would hope. Well, I hope we would like each other. Look, most relationships in my life usually start like that. My wife and I have had I don't know what it is. I either rub people the wrong way, they want to smack the smirk off my face,
I was ready to hurt you.
What's that?
I was ready to hurt you.
Yeah, you were prepared to hurt me. I've had that happen to me before, but then over time, I grow on people like moss or like fungus, and over time.
Off the trees around my house. I'm like,
right. That's what I'm saying. Come on. So over time, I wear people down.
Okay, but no, you didn't wear me down, but you came to me and apologized to me, and that is what I said. Well, dang.
I did apologize to you because I think I miscommunicated with you, and I said something that I didn't mean to say the way I said it, and you interpreted it in a way that I didn't mean it, and I offered you my apology. And I think
but you know what? You were at that time in that bubble. You were in that bubble of arrogance. I can say what I want to say. I can do what I want to do because, damn it, I've got the president this irreverent man who's standing behind me, and he doesn't like her. So I believe that's what it was. And I forget.
Well, I'm not going to recolorize history. I definitely think I drank the Kool-Aid. Check. I'll give you 100% on that. But I actually didn't really know your relationship with the president at the time. I didn't. I'm just being honest with you. I didn't at that moment in January when you and I met on Stephanie Rule's set at MSNBC. I knew who you were because I do watch a lot of television, perhaps not as much television as President Trump, but I did not know the relationship that you had with him. You have to remember when I got to Washington, I was extremely focused on my own business. Thank God I'm back at my own business. So a little bit of that, yeah. But look, I've been doing it over 32 years. I mean, but come on. I mean, my dad was a crane operator. I grew up in a blue collar family, and it was all about hustling to where I am. When I got my first job interview, April, you'll enjoy this. I was wearing 100% polyester. My suit was polyester. My shirt was polyester. My tie was polyester. And I remember the Goldman partner looking at me and saying, dude, you're like fully flammable for the job interview. You got to go buy real clothing. And that's how I started. There was a great deal of naivete, and there was a great deal of a lack of understanding of the system and the establishment. You have to remember, I never hit a golf ball, never swung a tennis racket. And we grew up decidedly middle class. So for me, it has been a story of a series of rites of passages. I certainly got my baptism in Washington. I got steeped in understanding what these people are really like. And I had my comeuppance. And so, listen, I'm honest about that. I try to own it, April.
You said you were steeped in what these guys are really like.
These are terrible people. Terrible people.
So
terrible people. Like, I tell my Wall Street buddies, I said, I want you to imagine the worst person you ever met on Wall Street. We got some tough people on Wall Street. The worst person on Wall Street is like the Eagle Scout down there. I mean, these are really rough, really terrible, really vicious, mean-spirited people.
Right. And I have asked, and I'm going to tell you, I don't play this. I love everyone. All this stuff, the president hugging the flag. He can't even sing the national anthem. He doesn't know the national anthem. I've watched him. He lip syncs that. I have watched him with a lot of people that he targets, the basement of his base. Those same people that he claims he loves, the forgotten man, he would not want them in Trump Tower or in Trump International. Am I correct?
Yeah, well, you're not only correct, but Michael Cohen has said that. Howard Stern has said that. He plays the part, and he has an ability to connect with those people. I am not going to be one of those people, April, that demonizes the president. I think that's a mistake. If you want to beat President Trump and I want to beat him, I think you can't demonize him, because the minute you're demonizing him, you're causing his supporters to shut down.
It's not
stop listening to the argument.
It is saying he has no empathy. And
that's true.
He has no empathy. And I'm showing, what I'm trying to say is, this president is using a lot of these people as pawns to do his bidding. Those same people, the forgotten man, are going out to Portland, Oregon, right? Doing his bidding. So this is what I'm saying. I'm saying this to say you're putting yourself on the line for a man who doesn't even want you in his properties, his wealthy enclaves. He don't want them at Mar-a-Lago.
Well, let me add a sentence to that. He wants you without the mask because he wants to minimize the tragedy of the pandemic, but he could care less if you die as a result of you not wearing that mask.
Herman Cain.
He doesn't care. When he's doing a news search, April, he's searching TRUMP. He's not searching USA. And he's not searching YOU. He could care less about YOU, and it doesn't matter who that person is. And so that's how things roll with him. And then so what ends up happening is you're in it, you're intoxicated by it, you're intoxicated by the office of the presidency and the power, and then you have to start making some decisions that are about yourself. You have to start saying, okay, is this who I want to be? Is this my life? Is this my personal? Am I going to put my personal integrity and my reputation on the line for him? And there's a group of people that are left in the administration where the answer to that is yes. There's a very large group of people that have left the administration, where the answer to that is no. And I predict there will be
They were
people
fired.
leaving.
Let's say not just left. A lot of them were fired.
Some of them resigned. I certainly was fired. But here's the thing I would say to you is I tried to stay loyal to the president. My attitude at the time of my firing was I did something fireable, and so therefore I'm accountable for it, and I'm going to try to stay loyal to the president. But I couldn't, because he's separating the women from the children and putting them in cages. He's disavowing the intelligence agencies. He's calling the press the enemy of the people. He told the squad, the final blow for me was that he told the squad that they needed to go back to the countries that they originally came from. 3 of those women were born in the United States. 1 was a naturalized citizen. All 4 were democratically elected to our Congress. I don't have to agree with them from a policy perspective or from an ideology perspective, but they have a right under our Constitution to be here. And if I want to battle with them, I should be battling with them in the free marketplace of ideas. I shouldn't be saying racist, nativist tropes to insist that they leave the country. Right. I did that to my Italian American grandmother. She didn't like it very much. April, it's as if Charles Lindbergh had a baby with Joe McCarthy, and the baby was raised by Roy Cohn. That's the person that's sitting in the White House right now. And that's the wrong person for America at a very perilous time for America. We have to answer for and address the racial tension in America. Yep. We have to answer for and address the income inequality in America. We have to restate and renew the principles of the American democracy and make the system progress. We need to make the system fairer. This is a divider. This is a classic racist. He is a liar, and he is intellectually vacuous when it comes to policy. So this combination of all those things. Now, somebody could say to me, well, he was all those things and you supported him anyway. And so he hasn't changed. So what changed? And my answer to that, April, is I've changed. The process that I've been through, the humiliation of my firing, the repair of my marriage after the fact of what happened to me, putting my family back together, putting my business back together, being more observant and psychologically minded to other people out there, I've changed. And a result of which I'm betting that we can bring a lot of Republicans with us to annihilate Donald Trump on November 3rd. I'm betting if I changed, there could be 3 to 5% of the Republicans that can change. And in the immortal words of Steve Bannon, April, if we can get 3 to 5% of the Republicans to change, he's gone. And that's what we're working on. The Lincoln Project, Republicans voting against Trump, the 43 Project, the Repair Project that Miles Taylor and I, the former Department of Homeland Security Chief of Staff, is working on. I'm going to be up in those areas of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan talking about this issue. This isn't about ideas and policy, April. This is about the system. And it's about protecting the integrity of the system and protecting it against autocracy.
Yeah, the system is definitely broken. I think back to, and before I even go there, guys, we're talking to Anthony Scaramucci, former White House communications director, former campaign staffer for Donald John Trump, now turned towards Joe Biden and getting this president out. And at the end of the day, I also want to say, I don't consider the president my enemy, but I'm gonna tell you this: I have to run for my life because of this president. So,
yeah, well, he's done that to all of us. It's Trump's America. It comes with death threats. It comes with knocks on your door. Yeah, it comes with people taking pictures of your front door, saying they're going to come into the house and hurt your children. It comes with nefarious letters. It comes with voicemails. I've lost business as a result of my disavowal. I've gained some business. I've lost some business. But rather than politics being a service position for public servants, it's now become a preoccupation for most Americans because of this man's sickness, because of his mental illness and his unyielding need for attention. We find ourselves focused on politics. I want to go back to watching the Mets lose, April. You know what I'm saying? I'm a Met fan. I enjoy watching the Mets lose. It gives me some level of satisfaction to feel that pain. I don't want to be focused on all this, and I'm hoping it ends in the next 46 days.
So you were talking about the office of president, the presidency, the office of the presidency.
Yeah.
And it's sacred in politics. It's the holy grail, if you will. And the office has been besmirched, has been mocked. And when we saw something that was similar to this months ago, I mean, because this is full blown, just total broken rule of law. Everything is just broken. When we saw something similar, I'll go back a couple months ago around impeachment when people were equating them to Richard Nixon. Republicans went to Richard Milhouse Nixon and said, look, they're going to impeach you. You need to resign. And he did. What is going on with these Republicans? You were in the room where it happened. Mm-hmm. Tell me why they are not doing checks and balances. Is it just about because the president tweets against you? Or what? Does he have something on people? Because I don't understand. This country is going down, down, down fast because of this man's limited capability and his racist behavior and his non-understanding about how government works and how he's supposed to serve the people, not himself.
Okay, so I mean, it's a terrific question, and I'm going to give you the bad news. Some of it is related to the personality, Donald J. Trump, and some of it is systemic. And so, unfortunately, there's been a vacuum of advocacy for blue-collar people in America. Blue-collar people have felt left out over the last 3 decades. If you look at their wages, April, they're very dissatisfied and they're angry. And so, when you have a populist political leaders stoking their fears and stoking their anger, you get this situation where now the politicians that are perhaps more normal than the demagogue are very fearful of that mob. And so you've got 3 things happening at the same time. The president's personality, his lack of shame, his lack of ethics, his lack of morality. You got his intimidation and bullying tactics. And then you have the mob that's been ginned up over the 3 decades of being dissatisfied with the system. And so in 1974, the men and the women, but mostly men at that time, let's just be honest about it, had served in the Second World War. And whether it was Howard Baker or Bob Dole or any of those men, some of them I've heard speak after the Watergate thing. One of them said in a public speech, well, I watched my best friend, my brother in arms, have his head blown off in a skirmish in France. He was fighting for our freedom and he was fighting for the document, these sacred constitutional documents. And so I told Richard Nixon that I can't allow you to break the law. I can't allow you to subvert the Constitution. And if anything, I have to do it for my friend that I left behind in France, or the one I left behind in the Battle of the Bulge. And so the point being is we had way more national purpose. We had way more civic virtue. We were conjoined, many of us, by our experiences in the war and the military. Today, we have very, very few people that are serving the country nationally. Mm-hmm. The country's been polarized by the game that's played, the tribal warfare game that's played in the American media, plays itself out almost every night on cable television. And so the president exploited that. And so you only had one Republican politician that broke ranks and voted to convict him. He looked at the facts, Mitt Romney, he said, this guy's guilty and he's got to go. And he voted to convict him. Now, you could be cynical and say, well, he didn't really know. He sort of knew that he was going to get acquitted anyway. So it was just a straw vote, if you will. But I take issue with that. I think it took a lot of courage for Governor Romney to do what he did. And he's speaking out again now. And we've got to get more and more Republicans to speak out. But the president has been very successful, April, at hijacking that party and turning that party into a personality cult.
Personality cult. And that's the thing. And, I heard someone say a while ago, they said, when you go into the White House, it's like kryptonite. You forget that you have to fight back or you have to hold them accountable. Are you finding people just laying bare for him?
The journalists or the people that are working for him now?
People that
the staff,
Republican Party,
Yeah, he's cleaned out anybody that had a moral center or had a moral compass or who would push back on him. I've had senior people in private conversations with me say, you have no idea how many laws I prevented him from breaking. And so he's wiped out most of those people. He's down to
whistleblowers who are telling
yeah,
you.
of course.
That,
Yeah.
wow.
And he's got his handful of acolytes now, and he's got his handful of sycophants. And he's basically running the White House the way he ran the Trump organization, with a few family members and a few sycophants. And what you've learned about the president, he is a good entertainer. He's got communication skills. You may not like him, but he's able to grab a crowd's attention. But he has no managerial skills.
Non-mask wearing crowd.
Well, yeah, because that's a lack of his leadership. That's his full-blown mendacity, and that's his full-blown self-interest. But in October of 2019, I had somebody come to my office in New York, sit down on my couch in my office and say, hey, we're going to have a real problem. Why is that? Well, you know what? The president can't manage. He doesn't have the skill set of building a team, using the resources of the team to effectuate policy or ideas or execute on things. And so he's a one-man show. And if you look at the Harvard Business School models or the Pentagon model, the most reports you can have at any one time is about 6. After that, it becomes very cumbersome. And so what the president has is no reports. So every morning, it's like a billiard game where the cue ball smashes into the billiards on the pool table, and everything's flying around in a million pieces, and everybody is stultified with fear that they're going to say and or do something that's going to upset the president and cause them to be humiliated through a firing or being tweeted at. So what happens is his staff is sitting there like this, frozen solid. And this gentleman, who was a senior cabinet level official, said to me that the entire executive branch of the United States has been immobilized by Donald Trump. And so if a crisis comes, Anthony, there will be nobody there prepared to handle the crisis, and they won't be able to coordinate as a group in the government. And so I thought that crisis, April, was going to be the Soleimani strike. And that seems like it was 500 years ago. But the first week of January, they torched General Soleimani. They fired a rocket at him. I obviously, you want bad guys to be off the planet, so I'm not saying I have a problem with that. But when I looked at the situation, I said, oh my God, this is going to be the crisis that was being referred to in October. That passed, thank God. But by March, we got the full-blown crisis that was predicted by this cabinet level official in October. And lo and behold, the president did exactly what you would anticipate based on his personality, based on how he ran the Trump organization, based on how he ran The Apprentice. And he acted as a lone wolf operator, as a one-man Broadway show with one Klieg light on him, no other spotlights on anybody else. And lo and behold, he cleaned out the epidemiologists and the scientists from the press briefings. And lo and behold, he said, don't wear a mask. And he didn't take the thing seriously in the beginning. He didn't coordinate with the governors. And he did a horrific job handling this crisis. And so South Korea, who got the illness the same day we did, has 20 deaths per million. And the United States has 600 deaths per million. And we're starting our our fifth Vietnam death cycle. We lost 58,000 Americans in Vietnam. We're tracking 200,000 dead now. By December, it'll be closing in on 300,000. And it's a national and international disgrace. And yet, my question back to you, how the hell does he still have 38 to 42% of the poll? He's destroyed the economy. He's made the country weaker, sicker, and poorer. How does he still have 35 to 42% of the poll?
I'm going to tell you something. He makes people believe that he's like them. What do you call it? The forgotten man. People who felt like they were left out, and people who have these racist ideas. That's who he's targeting. People who feel like they're left out, and they feel like the browning of America is causing them not to have money or what have you, and just other stuff. But Trump is so limited in his approach. He appeals to people who are base, who are just like, he can talk to anyone because he has no understanding. He does not have, he says how he's a genius, but he can't read well. He doesn't understand, he doesn't comprehend national intelligence. He doesn't comprehend highbrow cerebral issues that a president should be able to handle. We all want somebody in there smarter than us to be able to handle situations like this. And he is dumb as a doornail, dumb as a doorknob, if you will. And there are people who thought he's just like us. That's not good. That's not good. Because we are in, Herman Cain is dead. How many of us know someone who has died or their body has changed in some kind of way because of COVID? How many of us are dealing with racism? How many of us have lost our jobs because of this man and his mishandling of COVID? How many of us, the nation is in a recession. Black folks and brown folks are in a depression. He's not targeting. So it's the mindset. I'm sorry. And I mean,
I accept
go
that.
run and say I said the president is dumb as a doorknob. He is. He is. He is.
Well, I mean, listen, it's one thing to lack intelligence, but it's another thing to be so ridiculously insecure. So what you find with insecure people like him, he'll try to demean and put down people that are smarter than him. Nobody is better.
What did he call me? What did he call me? He called me a loser. I'm not the one running around talking about putting Lysol and Clorox and a light injecting it in people.
Well, he called me a loser. He called me an unstable nut job. I think he called me a few other things. I'm actually comfortable. Too. Yeah, I love all that. I don't care what he's calling me, but think about one of his major skill sets is to be able to insult people that are superior to him. He's very good at that. Okay, and he because he lacks confidence and he's always feeling insecure, and so his first move is to slap and push around people with these verbal attacks. And so the good news about the Vice President Biden, he hasn't taken the bait on any of that stuff. He's basically ignored it, and I think that's been the right strategy. But listen, if you lack intelligence, but you have self-confidence, what you do is you bring in a ton of really smart people, and you ask them for help, and then you build consensus, and you organize yourself, and you create a really good morale environment for your team, where they want to loyally work on your behalf and on behalf of the country. And you set the culture so that the culture is one of service, not of ruling. And so since he set a ruling culture, he's got people like William Barr, who are disgraceful, saying nonsense like slavery and sheltering at home are somehow in the same space of a denial of civil liberties. I mean, it's just absolutely despicable to say something like that.
This is supposed to be the nation's top cop. This is supposed to be the nation's top cop, equating slavery and staying home because of COVID. And then you wonder why I asked.
Well, if you heard the clapping in Arlington, there was a lot of clapping related to that.
Because people are ignorant. They have not read about history. They don't know about it. They have not read government history. They've not had civics.
I accept that.
They've not had world history. They haven't done any of this. So at the end of the day, this is why I asked that question of Sarah Huckabee Sanders. You might have been there at the time. Is slavery, or you might have been on the way. Do they support slavery because of the thing that General Kelly said about the compromise? Oh, that's a ridiculous question. It was a ridiculous thing, but now look at how everything is anti-Black, anti-slavery, all Confederacy. So I mean, these people, you can see through them, even if they're not wearing sheets. You can see what they are. The sheet marks are still around the neck, and the president's hair looks like it's still shaped like a hood. I don't know.
Well,
anyway.
he's certainly more dangerous than a Grand Wizard, and he's empowered. And
David
so when
Duke is supporting his reelection.
When you send out a racist dog whistling tweet like the one about lower income housing, April, I grew up in a middle class area surrounded by lower middle income and lower income housing. Many of those people that I grew up with, not only were they great people, but a lot of them went on to live the American dream, make multiple millions of dollars for themselves, and create tens of thousands of jobs in our society. So the notion that he's putting in a tweet, well, don't worry, suburban white housewives, there'll be no lower income housing. That's code for Black people or Hispanic people in your neighborhood. I find it disgusting. I find it offensive. But I am no longer shocked that my fellow Republicans, particularly the elected ones, are not speaking out about it. And that speaks to the dishonor of what is going on. But that dishonor is very consistent to interwar Germany. That dishonor is very consistent to what happens when a demagogue hijacks a political situation.
Hijacks a political situation. They are hijacking the daggone post mailboxes off the street corner and messing with the sorting machines, in your face voter suppression to mess with the election. He's already said he's not leaving if Biden wins. Hillary, I know, right? I swear,
he's
Biden
leaving.
Wins, it's gonna be a split screen. Biden is gonna be there on one side taking the oath, and Donald Trump, we're gonna see troops pulling him out. But here's the thing. Hillary Clinton said on this COVID conversations with me, she told Joe Biden, do not concede because of these ill-gotten tactics that they are doing to suppress the vote.
Yeah, well, he's leaving. He's going to get slaughtered on November 3rd. It's going to be an overwhelming landslide victory for the vice president, and he's leaving. And one of the great things is if you're trying to subvert a democracy, if you're a full-blown autocrat, you better have help from the military, and he doesn't have it. He is universally disliked by the men and women of the military. That includes the enlisted men and women, and it includes the active and retired generals. And so the great good fortune for us is we have an exceptional group of people that are very patriotic in the military, that are serving the country and are serving the national purpose. And these are the very same people that the president called losers. And the reason why the president called those people losers, April, because I know him, he called them losers because he is a coward and he feels inferior to them. So therefore he has to mock them to make himself feel better. So not only did he say all of that stuff, you won't get him. Jeff Mason, you may have seen that 2 weeks ago at the North Portico, asked the president, well, why don't you get General Kelly to issue a statement? If what you're saying isn't true in the Atlantic magazine, why don't you get General Kelly to issue a statement? And the answer to that is, no way am I going to get General Kelly to issue a statement, because he'll tell people that that's the tip of the iceberg of my ranting and ravings and my disavow of the men and women of our military. So listen, he's a despicable guy, but he does have 35 to 42% support. And we have to work every single day, run through the tape, play till the last minute of the last second of the last play to defeat him, and we will. We will do that.
Biden's lead is narrowing. Why? And then, because you would think after the conventions, the bump would be higher. And then with the debate, we got to see what's going to happen. I'm concerned about debates.
Well, you have 45 days to go to the elections. That's a lifetime in Trump world. But I think the lead is narrowing consistent with the Reagan-Carter election. You had an incumbent president. You had a lot less undecided voters. I would encourage you to get Rachel Bykoffer's polling analysis. She was dead on in 2016. She was even more accurate in 2018 at the midterm elections. And she's releasing a report in the next couple of days that totally analyzes the 50 states, looks through a cross-section of the electorate, and explains what's going on right now. And I had her on my podcast, my Salt Talk, and she said that there is a 60% reduction in undecided voters at this moment. So meaning the same time last time, 2016, there were 60% more undecided voters. Something like 16% of the electorate was undecided. It's closer now to about 7%. And so the good news there is that Joe Biden's decidedly in the lead, and these people are missile-locked. They're pretty much decided on who they're going to vote for. And ultimately, I would like to see the vice president and vice president designee Kamala Harris be a little more aggressive and more offensive and define themselves better. That's just my personal opinion. But ultimately, it's going to be a referendum on the president. And the president has not done well. And there's enough smart people that will beat back his ardent supporters. So I predict he's going to lose handily in November.
It is very tough right now with COVID for them. And you're right, the traveling and all of that. Um, and I respect the fact that he hasn't been doing rallies. He has not done super spreader events versus the president of the United States, just disrespecting the CDC and the severity of this moment that we're in, this pandemic. So
Yes.
I want to go back to something that you said, someone that you talked about, Steve Bannon. What's going on with Steve Bannon? When's the last time you talked to him? Steve Bannon, he and the president still think alike, even though they are supposedly distant.
Well, the last time I talked to Steve Bannon was in the Oval Office. We had walked into the Oval Office together. It was July 31st, 2017. And we were standing more or less near each other when John Kelly was sworn in as White House Chief of Staff. John's first official act was to fire my ass. And so I got fired right after he got sworn in. And so I haven't seen or talked to Steve Bannon since then. But Steve Bannon has a perverted worldview. Steve Bannon is a white, ethnocentric nationalist. And Steve Bannon, the good news about President Trump is that he's intellectually vacuous. The bad news about Steve Bannon is most of the books behind me, he's read. So he's a very well-read guy. He's very smart, and he has a worldview. And so his worldview and the president's is conjoined. But the good news for all of us is that since the president doesn't read, he really can't define his worldview. So what happens is if you have a man of danger like Steve Bannon near the president, he serves up to the president what he thinks the president's worldview is, and then they start executing that policy.
I.e.,
And
the immigration policy.
Yes. Well, let me tell you their worldview, because I think this is very important for America. This is a warning to America. Their worldview is to roll America back to the 1890s. Their worldview is to wall off America. Their worldview is to disavow the David Ricardo principle of global trade. Professor Ricardo once said that each nation cannot get exactly what it needs at the lowest price unless it trades with the other nations. And so he's really considered the father of global trade. They want to disavow that. They want to literally and figuratively wall off America from the rest of the world. And that would be a destructive force. It would unleash a catastrophe. Even if the United States, with this abundance of natural resources and intellectual capital and the strength of our system, even if we were successful in doing that, it would create abject poverty around the rest of the world. The people that set up the post-World War II architecture understood that there needed to be, in the self-interest of the United States, some level of magnanimous behavior with the rest of the world. The Marshall Plan, the uneven trade deals with the General Agreement of Trade and Tariffs, and the willingness of the United States to spend a very large sum of money on its military. Our post-World War II architects, Dean Atkinson, George Marshall, Dwight Eisenhower, Harry Truman, they understood, or at least they believed. I think they'd be shocked today to see Donald Trump in that position. But what they understood back then is that it was super important for us to have the largest military because they were making a bet on the benevolence of our democracy. And so what we found is Russian robotic intelligence, Russian intelligence in terms of interference, and a couple of willing acolytes who care more about power, their own personal preservation, than they do patriotism and love of country, could really put the country in a mess. And so hopefully we can beat back Mr. Trump. But remember, April, it is not going to be the end of Trumpism or the specter of nationalism.
That's right.
We have to work on improving and diffusing the anger that's out there. And I predict that we will. I predict we can reach those people and explain to them that there are good, positive solutions for themselves and their families.
Wow. Anthony Scaramucci, guys, we got 15 more minutes, and this has gone by so fast. So Anthony, there's so much to talk to you about. Some business people voted for Trump for a single issue, Trump tax breaks. And those people, those wealthy people, are now going from the tax breaks to bankruptcy. Can you talk about that? Have you heard anything about these rich people that supported the president who are now going bankrupt in the midst of COVID. They supported him for this single issue tax breaks, and now they're going bankrupt because of him.
Well, I think you're referring to some of the retailers, some of the people in the gaming industry. They're under siege. Anything that requires socialization or interconnectivity, if that was a very good business pre-COVID, has become a terrible business post-COVID. It's been eaten alive by Amazon or Netflix, frankly, where we're entertaining ourselves in the house now as opposed to going outside the house. But I think you're making a broader point. They voted on a single issue, and there is still a perception by the American electorate that the president is better for the economy than Joe Biden. And I'm here to tell you that is categorically false. I run over $7.5 billion in capital. I've been in the capital markets for 32 years, less my 11-day fiasco in Washington. And I can tell you that if you're putting at risk the rule of law under people like Donald Trump and William Barr, if you're putting at risk the judicial system, and you're putting at risk the integrity, or at least our belief in the integrity of the federal government, you are going to raise risk premiums in the capital markets, and you are going to hurt American businesses. So the pablum of tax cuts and the rhetoric that spews from the president's mouth is not going to be enough if he threatens the core institutions of our democracy. The reason why internationalists put their money in America is they actually believe in the system. They believe in the integrity of our laws. They believe in the legal precedent. And they believe that the structure is diffuse enough that no man or no woman by themselves can take dictatorial or autocratic powers. And so for these reasons, a Trump reelection will be horrific for the economy. He is going to be an orange wrecking ball, smashing harder and harder into those great institutions.
He was an orange wrecking ball in his own company. How do you bankrupt a casino when they're running to casinos?
Yeah, well, I think what happened there was a combination of things. He took on too much debt. He wanted to have this very opulent design. And so he had to hit a certain number, and the economy had to be quite good. He also lost 2 or 3 senior executives that knew what they were doing in that casino. They died tragically in a helicopter crash on the way down to Atlantic City. And that's probably 25 or 30 years ago now. And it was the combination of that plus the recession. He went into bankruptcy. I think 4 of his businesses went bankrupt. But the interesting thing about that story is that he was almost too big to fail in that situation. The bankers figured out that they were going to lose so much money if they let him fail. They'd rather work with him to reprop him back up. And I'll tell you what, that has fortified him. That type of colossal failure and the comeback from that, the resilience required for that, has fortified him to take the punches that he's taking right now. And in a weird way, I think it's made him meaner. In a weird way, I think it has made him less empathetic for others.
Do you believe do you believe in this election that the Democrats will take the Senate?
Well, I'm not as close to that. I'm really focused on making sure that we take him out. So I'm not as close to that. When I look at the Real Clear Politic polls, it looks like they have a really, really good shot to do that. But I'm not close enough to it to really be the person to give you the best answer. But I think if Vice President Biden wins by the margins I think he's capable of, I then think that that's a fait accompli, that will happen.
So let me say, the reason why I asked that, because if you want a complete turn, a change, not just if let's say this president loses the White House and the Senate is still Republican, checks and balances are going to be off still. Yes. Because you've got the same people who propped up, enabled this president who is breaking the law.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's why I asked.
Yeah, he'll likely get impeached again, though. He's created so many crimes. He'll likely be impeached again. I mean, even the Bob Woodward tape, where it's almost like negligent homicide or negligent manslaughter, where he's basically admitting to Woodward that he knows how dangerous this is, and yet he's going to get out there and lie to the American people anyway. And we know from the New York Times study and the Columbia University study that there's likely 100,000 people dead as a result of this incompetence and this sort of malpractice.
So, and what's crazy about the whole thing is when you look at the tapes and you hear it in his own words, he's playing a street game that they do and that they play everywhere. You know, this is not highbrow above board. This is street. This is gutter. This is hood.
No, listen, there's no question about it.
The president flipped it on Bob Woodward. When you are the president of the United States, the buck stops with you, period. End of story.
Think of the narrative yesterday where he's saying, well, you know, the blue states, implying that it was the blue state governors that caused the casualties, not his own incompetence and his lack of coordination in creating a national strategy. Without the blue states, we actually did pretty well. Think of the callous disregard for people's lives and think about the lack of unity that message is presenting to people. So my job over the next 45 days, April, is to sort of break down some of those people, to lay it out for them, almost to deprogram them or to delayer aspects of what they're thinking about Mr. Trump. And just pointing out in his own words and his own deeds the malevolence of him and how dangerous he would be in a second term.
How dangerous would a second term be?
Well, I think it would be catastrophic. I think that you have a combination of him and William Barr and sycophants, and I think they will do everything they can to subvert the rule of law. Everything they can. So despite all the rhetoric about law and order, they represent the lawless and the most disorderly. So there will be an exacerbation of racial tension. There will be an exacerbation of the trade war and the subsequent fiasco of it. You could run the risk that he pulls us out of NATO, which is an alliance that has worked successfully for 73 years. You could see him in the second, third, or fourth year of his term resigning, kicking Vice President Pence to the curb, appointing Ivanka Trump, and then resigning, having Ivanka Trump as president pardon him, and then have her run as an incumbent against a Democratic opponent in 2024. Everything is on the table. There's no norm. There's no custom, to use your word about the street and the way he would fight from a street perspective. There is no norm. There's no custom. There's no 200-plus year tradition. Think about these gentlemen that are in the American military, General Mattis, General Kelly, General McMaster. They wanted to serve the country. They're great patriots, and they understand the military tradition of not overly interfering in civilian politics. And so they've been biting their tongue. Sure, they're quoted in the two Woodward books, Fear and Rage. They're quoted there, but they're not speaking out with any level of public profile the way I am, because of their respect for their positions in the American military. If Donald Trump was a general with his moral compass, do you think he would do that? Absolutely not. He would trample every custom, every moray, every idea, every precedent in order to aggrandize himself. It's absolutely disgusting, April.
If he is not reelected, we're expecting that this president is going to jail. They're going to unseal documents and going after him. Do you think that he will ever do you ever think he will be brought to court with that?
Again?
Someone called you. I said,
I shut it off right away. I'm sorry.
Was it the president? Yep. Was he mad that we were talking?
Yeah, no. He doesn't call me anymore. The last time I spoke to him was in Easter Sunday. That was the last time I spoke to him, 2019. But I think you were asking a question about him staying in office? No, I didn't hear it.
If he's not reelected,
yes,
they're going to unseal a lot of these documents.
Oh, I see. Going to jail, yeah.
And will he go? Do you think he will actually do you actually think that they will take him, that he will get to court? Do you think that will actually happen?
I don't think that will actually happen. And I think that for the national purpose, I think the precedent there is really Gerald Ford. And I'll point out to you that in 2009, in the last book that Teddy Kennedy wrote prior to his death from his brain tumor, he said, upon reflection, He was dead set against the pardoning of Richard Nixon in 1974. It actually took place in September of 1974. He was dead set against it, but he wrote in 2008 into 2009 that with 35 years of perspective, he recognized that it was very healing for the country to move past the debacle and the criminality of Richard Nixon. And he felt that it was necessary to bring the country together. So I don't think it will happen. Will he be tried? That's possible. Will he be found guilty? Yes. But I see it as a very low probability that a formerly elected governmental official that rose to the level of the presidency is going to end up in an American jail. And I'm not sure I like
totally
it. No matter
from anything else we've seen
I
before.
I understand that, and certainly I'm not defending him not going to jail. It'll be up to the judges, it'll be up to the political process and the people making those decisions. You're just asking me my opinion based on my observation of American history and precedent. You know, should he go to jail? Does he deserve to go to jail? Well, let me tell you something. Here's something I would say to you, and I think you'll respect this. They have so subverted the rule of law in our country that even Steve Bannon needs to be presumed innocent. As much as I dislike him, because of the integrity of our system, we have to presume him innocent until he has his day in court.
Okay, but let me tell you something. There are too many facts out here right now that are showing.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. So look, I mean, they've got the email traffic. They've got all the information. Let it go through the court system. Once he's convicted, invite me back on to your Instagram Live.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And by the way, I'm not a Buddhist, okay? There's no such thing as Italian Buddhism. I hate from the bottom of my soul to the top of my head, okay? I was delighted when the guy got arrested because he's a horrific guy. He did very bad things to me, and karma's a bitch. You know, so I'm not one of these like forgetful Buddhists. I can't get to heaven. I'm a Roman Catholic. I can't get to heaven because I still have hate in my heart for Steve Bannon. What can I tell you, April?
You know, well, I don't know what Steve Bannon did to you, but I can tell you what was done to me. And
they're just bad people.
And it's not
just
what's
bad
done
people
to me. It's what's done to this nation, what's done to innocent people.
Mm-hmm.
People need to go to jail. And profiteering, all of that stuff is being looked at.
Yes.
You know, it's a lot on the table, guys. Pay attention. This president is not equipped to handle this job and to take care. He's supposed to protect and serve. He's not. He's sending people out there to Portland, Oregon, and all these places, telling them go again. He pumped up that little guy that shot in the two people.
In Kenosha, Wisconsin, the out-of-stater, the 17-year-old. Yeah, I don't want to mention his name, but yes.
Right. He supported the little boy who disrespected the Native American at the very least.
Well, that's one of the reasons why he's 10. That's one of the reasons why he's 10 points down in Wisconsin. You know, he's supporting somebody that crossed the border with a rifle and murdered innocent people, and he's praising it. And I don't think that. Yeah, but I mean, I think that there are more Democrats in that state now. It's controlled by a Democratic governor.
People care about your soul. They say, "Mooch, don't hate."
Is that what they're saying? I'm making a joke. I really could. You think I think about Steve Bannon? I don't really think about. I'm just making a joke. It's a, you have to grow up in an Italian neighborhood to see my sense of humor on that. I don't think about Steve Bannon, but you tell them, don't worry about my soul. I'm going to confession, and I still have a tremendous amount of faith.
All right,
I was just making a joke.
You're a good Catholic. And lastly, on the issue of race, what did you see with this president and matters of race? I mean, when you were there, it was nothing like this, but you were there at a time when S-hole nations and all that stuff were probably bantered about.
Yeah, well, I had already left when he started the S-hole nation thing, but I know that that's something he could say. I would say something to you based on when I was there. I have now changed my mind on that. George Conway convinced me of that. You know, George Conway and I were in the movie. Kellyanne's husband. We were in the movie Unfit, which is now the #1 documentary on iTunes. I would, or whatever it's called, ITV. I would recommend to everybody that you watch that movie. It is an exposition of what the president is really like. You know, I'm interviewed in the movie. George is interviewed and many other people that know the president. But what I would have said to you, and I would have been wrong, is that the president is such a narcissist that he objectifies people. And so therefore, you're just an object in his field of vision. You're not really a person with any feelings or any, he's not trying to create a relationship with you. And so what I would have said incorrectly, I would have said, well, since he's objectifying people, the Grand Wizard in the KKK is not racist against a black car or a white car. He's not walking over to the black car and kicking it. Okay, so I got that wrong. I think the president is a racist. And George Conway took me through in a very syllogistic, legal way all of the things that President Trump has done that exemplifies full-blown racism. So the most recent thing, which I think is quite egregious, are the tweets related to low-income housing in the suburbs. I just find that to be one of the most offensive things that he's done recently.
But I want to add to that. No one talks about, he's talking about the white women having, low income people coming to the suburbs and having Cory Booker, the head of HUD.
Yeah.
There's an old thing where.
Well, I just want to give you the heads up. I think all of the white women, when they heard Cory Booker was coming to the suburbs, they thought they were pretty happy about that. Okay. Most people like Cory Booker. So myself included, I happen to like Cory. So when he said that, I was like, oh my God, that's full blown racism. And then you hear all these white women, suburban housewives saying, wave in Cory, let's go.
The old fear in white America was a black man with a white woman. And I said, Emmett Till died for a lie from a white woman on him. So, I mean,
I remember that situation.
Right. It was deeper than just that. No one ever brought that piece out to me.
I'm going to test your memory. I'm going to tell you, before we go, I'm going to test your memory. Do you remember Professor Derek Bell from the Harvard Law School?
Yes.
Okay, so he was a civil rights champion. He was the first tenured African-American professor. Or maybe not, maybe he wasn't tenured, I don't remember, but he was certainly the first African-American law school professor. He was my faculty advisor. And in my third year at Harvard Law School, I wrote a 45-page paper on the Starrett City housing complex in Brooklyn. And the Starrett City housing complex was low-income housing. And there was an administrator there that was accepting applications. And every time the population of the housing complex got to 50% black, he was rejecting applications. And they said, well, that's racist. And he said, no, it's not racist. My mandate is to make this an interracial housing complex. And there's something called white flight. And if we go over 50% black, the whites are going to move to the suburbs. And so I am following my mandate. And so this went to the district court, and it was brought down. And then they tried to get it up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court never took the case. But I wrote my 45-page third-year paper on a what if the Supreme Court had taken the case, and how would they have decided it? And my point, and you know this from your history, Plessy versus Ferguson versus Brown versus Dred Scott versus Brown versus, what we know about the Supreme Court in its attempt to be impartial, it has always been quite political. And so in 1989, I would have said to you, well, the court would have upheld that decision and allowed for the rejection of black families above the 50%. But today, I believe it wouldn't. And so I want to end our conversation on an optimistic note. There's enough knowledgeable and psychologically minded people that know what is going on. And they're doing their best to educate their families and educate their children. I grew up in an area where we played football. We were Irish, Italian, blacks, Jews. And guess what happens when you're steeped in an area like that? You recognize we're all the same. But when you're growing up and you've got crackers for fat parents and they're chanting to you a certain mantra, you can grow up as a racist. And so we have to break that down, April, and I'm going to spend a good part of my life doing that, as I've done already.
Anthony Scaramucci, I so appreciate you. Thank you for spending your time.
I appreciate you having me on. It's a lot of fun to be with you. I hope I can see you face to face. My wife and I would love to go to dinner, so consider it a date.
No time soon.
All right.